In the quiet fields of southern Pennsylvania, under a vast and silent sky, lies a scar on the American landscape. In the summer of 1863, the tiny town of Gettysburg, with a population of just 2,400 people, became the epicenter of the Civil War's bloodiest battle. For 3 hellish days, the ground trembled under the roar of cannons and the boots of nearly 170,000 soldiers. When the smoke cleared, more than 50,000 men were gone, killed, wounded, or missing. They say the creeks ran red with blood. It was a turning point in the war, a chapter of American history written in blood and sacrifice. But what if, for some, the battle never ended? What if the echoes of that unimaginable trauma, the fear, the pain, the sudden, violent loss were so powerful they became permanently etched into the very soil? Tonight, we're investigating the chilling, modern eyewitness reports of phantom regiments still marching across these hallowed grounds, and the disembodied sounds of a war that refuses to fall silent. This is the unsolved mystery of America's most haunting night. To understand the hauntings, you first have to understand the horror. From July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, the Union and Confederate armies clashed in a brutal, desperate struggle for the future of a nation. The fighting swept across rolling hills, orchards, and even into the streets of the town itself. Places with peaceful names like the Wheatfield and the Peach Orchard were transformed into landscapes of almost incomprehensible carnage, where thousands of men fell in close-quarters combat. The sheer scale of the violence was staggering. On the second day alone, fighting in a 20-acre plot known as the Wheatfield resulted in over 6,000 casualties. The final day saw the infamous Pickett's Charge, a futile and catastrophic assault where 12,500 Confederate soldiers marched across an open field under a relentless barrage of artillery and rifle fire. In less than an hour, more than half were cut down. But the battle's end was just the beginning of another kind of horror. The small town of Gettysburg was left to deal with the aftermath. Over 20,000 wounded men overwhelmed every available building. Homes, churches, and barns became makeshift field hospitals. One local woman recalled how her carpets became so saturated with blood they were unusable, and how they used books as pillows for the dying. Amputations were often performed without anesthetic, with nothing but a shot of whiskey to dull the agony. The air grew thick with the stench of death as thousands of bodies lay decaying in the oppressive July heat. This crucible of suffering, this immense concentration of human emotion and death, is where the legends of Gettysburg's ghosts were born. The stories started almost immediately. Long before modern ghost hunters arrived with their fancy equipment, locals and veterans were reporting strange phenomena. An 1880 article by a local writer mentioned many unnatural and supernatural sights and sounds that had been reported for years, especially around the rocky hills of the Round Tops. Soldiers' bodies were often buried in shallow, unconsecrated graves right where they fell. This lack of proper burial rites is one of the oldest theories for why so many spirits are believed to remain. Our first stop is a place whose name seemed to predict its grim future: Devil's Den. Even before the battle, this forbidding jumble of massive granite boulders was steeped in local folklore about strange spirits. On July 2nd, 1863, it became a Confederate sharpshooter's nest, a scene of brutal, close-range fighting where soldiers used the rocks for cover in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Today, Devil's Den is considered one of the most paranormally active spots in all of Gettysburg. Visitors and paranormal investigators report an unnerving array of phenomena. Full-bodied apparitions of soldiers are frequently seen among the rocks, especially at dawn and dusk. The disembodied sounds of gunfire, shouts, and drum rolls echo through the boulders when no one is there. And perhaps most unnervingly, modern tech often fails here. Cameras and phones that worked perfectly just moments before will suddenly lose all battery power or just refuse to function, only to work again once the visitor leaves the area. One of the most persistent figures reported here is a barefoot man in ragged clothing, often described as having a floppy hat and a friendly but lost look. For decades, visitors who get turned around in the labyrinth of rocks have reported this man approaching them.
What you're looking for is over there.
Is he a helpful spirit, or just a lost soul forever wandering the place where he fell? Just a short distance from the chaos of Devil's Den lies the Rose Farm. During the battle, the farmhouse and its barn were taken over and used as a Confederate field hospital. The surrounding fields, including the infamous wheat field, became a burial ground for hundreds, maybe thousands, of soldiers from both sides. After the battle, the family returned to absolute devastation. It's said that the psychological toll on one of the Rose family's daughters was so great that she began to speak of visions of blood pouring from the farmhouse walls and was eventually driven insane. The haunting of the Rose Farm seems tied to this overwhelming sense of sorrow. In the 1930s, a worker tending the grounds reported seeing a soft, glowing light rising from the earth near an old burial site, which slowly took the form of a soldier. More recent visitors have had equally unsettling experiences. One person, while walking a path near the farm, suddenly felt the world go dead silent and ice cold, despite the summer heat. They then heard a match strike, smelled tobacco, and a voice whispered directly in their ear, "You don't belong here. Get out." This was followed by the deafening boom of a cannon, sending them fleeing in terror. When they told the story to a park ranger, they were told they weren't the first person to have that exact experience. Of all the ghostly phenomena reported at Gettysburg, none are as epic in scale as the phantom regiments. These aren't just single apparitions, but entire units of soldiers seen marching across the battlefield, often accompanied by the sound of drums and footsteps. One of the earliest and most compelling accounts happened in the 1950s. A group of visiting dignitaries was standing atop Little Round Top, looking out over the battlefield. Suddenly, they saw an entire battalion of soldiers march out of the woods on the opposite ridge, proceed across the field, and then disappear back into the trees. Assuming it was an impressive show put on by the Park Service, they later complimented the Rangers on the performance. The Rangers were stunned. There were no reenactors or park staff on the field that day, and it wasn't an isolated incident. Countless visitors, often at dusk or in the dead of night, have reported seeing formations of soldiers marching in silence, their uniforms sometimes appearing tattered and from a time long past. Ghost hunters have fled in the dark as the sound of footsteps surrounded them, coming from unseen forces. These accounts are so unsettling because they suggest that for some, the battle isn't a memory, but a continuing reality, an eternal march into a fight that can never be won. While the fields hold their secrets, some of the most shocking encounters have happened indoors, where the lines between past and present have blurred in the most terrifying way you can imagine. Pennsylvania Hall, a building on the Gettysburg College campus, served as a massive field hospital during the battle. One night in the 1980s, two college administrators were working late and took the elevator down from the 4th floor. For no reason, the elevator passed the main floor and descended into the basement. When the doors opened, the familiar storage area was gone. In its place was a fully realized, silent scene from 1863. The room was a chaotic hospital, filled with the bodies of wounded and dying soldiers on the floor. Doctors and orderlies rushed about, their clothes stained with blood, their faces masks of desperation. The two men stared in shock as one of the orderlies turned towards them, his expression pleading, as if asking for help. Before they could react, the elevator doors closed, sealing the vision away. They fled to campus security, but a search of the locked basement revealed nothing but storage boxes. This incident, backed up by two credible witnesses, stands as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that something extraordinary is happening at Gettysburg. It isn't just a sound or a shadow, but a complete, terrifying slip in time. From phantom regiments marching into oblivion to ghostly doctors trapped in a basement hell, the stories persist. Researchers using modern audio equipment claim to capture what they call electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, disembodied voices that seem to respond to questions with names, ranks, and pleas for help. So what is really happening at Gettysburg? Is the land so saturated with the trauma of 50,000 casualties that it endlessly replays the past? Or are these the actual spirits of soldiers, lingering on the ground they consecrated with their lives, their war never truly over? We may never have a definitive answer. The mystery endures, as silent and profound as the granite monuments that watch over the fields. The one thing that seems certain is that on this hallowed ground, something stays. The past is not dead, it's not even past. If you've ever had a paranormal experience at a historical site, share your story in the comments below. And for more investigations into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.